Today, we're diving into Hexbox. It's a platform looking to really shake up crowdfunding.
Yeah, that's the pitch.
Our main source here is their investor deck. It lays out the vision, the tech, the whole market play.
Pretty detailed stuff.
So our mission today, unpack what Hexbox is really doing, how they're tackling those, tricky fundraising problems.
And there are definitely problems.
Right. And what it all means for businesses needing cash and for the investors, the backers. Let's get into it.
Sounds good.
So maybe start with the why. What are the big issues Hexbox sees with fundraising right now? The ones they're trying to solve?
Well, the deck points to a few key things. First off, just access. Getting reliable funding is tough for a lot of projects.
Especially outside the usual VC routes.
Yeah, exactly. And specifically in crypto, they're saying there's a lack of really solid, trustworthy platforms. Not just launchpads, but places with real structure.
Okay, so a gap there, particularly for crypto-focused stuff. But what about after the money is raised? That always feels like a black box sometimes.
That's a huge point in the deck. The lack of transparency once the funds are actually deployed.
Right. Where does the money go?
Precisely. Backers lose sight of it. And, well, that kills trust, doesn't it?
It really does.
And this opacity, it directly fuels the risk of fraud, which the deck flags as a serious problem.
Okay, so transparency, fraud risk.
Yeah.
What else?
Then you've got regulatory hurdles. Compliance gets really complex, especially if you want to scale.
Mm-hmm.
And just the basic difficulty many projects face in building and, keeping a community engaged. So it's quite a list of challenges.
That lack of visibility after funding, it sort of breaks the promise, that your money is actually building the thing.
Totally.
So the insight seems to be Hexbox isn't just another platform. They're trying to rebuild that fundamental trust. How are they proposing to do that? What's the core idea?
Right. So their solution is this blockchain-powered crowdfunding platform built on Avalanche, initially at least.
Okay.
And the big promise is security and transparency, quote, every step of the way.
And how do they deliver on that? What's the mechanism?
The main thing they push is open fund tracking. The idea is simple, really. Backers can always see where the money flows, trying to just remove those trust issues we talked about.
Open tracking. That makes sense. Trust is the currency there, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Okay, so let's walk through it. I'm a business. I have an idea. How do I actually use Hexbox? And you mentioned flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility is a big selling point. So you create your campaign, pretty standard.
Yeah.
But then you choose a funding type.
Ah, okay. Not just one size fits all.
Exactly. The deck lays out 3 different models you can pick from.
3 models. All right, break them down for us.
First, you've got all or nothing. Classic crowdfunding model, right?
Yeah, we know that one. Goal or bust.
Right. Funds only transfer if you hit the full target by the deadline. If not, everyone gets refunded automatically.
Okay. High stakes. What's number 2?
Second is the flexible model. Here, you keep whatever you raise.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you hit the goal or not.
Ah, okay. So better for projects that can still deliver something with less funding. Or maybe ongoing things.
Could be. Yeah, less pressure to hit one big number. Gives you some certainty.
And the third one, you said limitless.
Yeah, limitless. This one has no funding cap, no deadline at all.
Really? So just continuous collection.
Uh-huh. Until you manually stop it. Think ongoing support, maybe community funds, projects that don't really have a fixed endpoint.
Wow, okay. That is really flexible. Lets creators tailor it to their actual project, their risk level.
Exactly.
And for me, as a backer, knowing which model they chose up front, that adds clarity, right? You know the rules.
Absolutely. Transparency from the start. And the deck links this back to outcomes. Successful funding means building the product, hitting milestones. Unsuccessful all or nothing means you get your money back.
And this is all run by smart contracts, I assume.
Yes. Smart contract escrow holds the funds. Automated refunds are built in. And it integrates with Avalanche C-Chain to start, but they hint at other blockchains later.
Okay, so the models offer choice. But the deck really hammers on the tech underneath, the stuff providing the ongoing transparency and security. They mention Oracle and Sentinel. Sounds serious.
Yeah, this is where it gets a bit more technical. They talk about rolling this out in phases. The Oracle update is part of what they call MVP plus 4s.
Oracle, like seeing the future. Or just data.
Huh. More like seeing the present, really clearly.
Yeah.
Think of it as the analytics engine. Real-time data.
What kind of data?
Campaign performance, investment flows, even tracking investor engagement, forecasting, marketing tools too.
Okay.
And importantly, stuff like on-chain indexing, which basically means making all the campaign's blockchain transactions easy to track and search. follow the money.
Gotcha. Makes sense for transparency.
Plus automated fraud detection, looking at backer behavior. It's the data layer, essentially.
Yeah.
So Oracle gives you the detailed picture of what's happening with the money and engagement.
Exactly. Then comes the next big piece, the Sentinel update. They call it a permissioned L1. It means a separate blockchain, not fully public, specifically for transactions that need strict regulatory oversight.
Ah, so it's about compliance.
Bingo. It highlights that tension, right, between crypto's openness and the needs of regulated finance.
Yeah, you can't just slap KYC onto a public chain easily.
Not without issues. So this permission chain lets them build rules right into the smart contracts. KYC, Know Your Customer checks, AML, anti-money laundering tracking.
Built-in compliance.
Right. It allows them to plug into regulatory systems, ensure assets are transferred legally, generate audit trails, create a controlled space for compliant activity.
That's clever. A walled garden for the regulated stuff, sitting alongside the more open parts. And this Sentinel layer, that's where the trust score comes in.
Yeah, the deck mentions a trust and compliance score. Probably pulls together verified data from this layer like past KYCML, clean transaction history.
A quantifiable reputation score almost.
Sort of. And there's a compliance dashboard, role-based access control, all feeding into a structured database, verified data.
And that structured data, is that where the AI piece fits? The deck mentions something about AI's database marking addresses.
You got it. That high-quality verified data from Sentinel is perfect input for AI.
How so?
Well, the AI can analyze patterns in that clean data, spot anomalies, mark addresses that look suspicious, enhancing the fraud detection. Plus, risk assessment, predictive analytics. The deck basically says Oracle's analytics, Sentinel's compliant data, and the AI working on that data. They all work together to, quote, reveal the truth to everyone involved.
Reveal the truth. Sounds dramatic, but I see the goal: efficiency, less risk.
Yeah, it's about building this layered system to bridge the gap between, crypto ideals and real-world financial rules.
That's a serious technical undertaking. Okay, let's zoom out again. What's the market Hexbox is going after here, and how do they actually make money? Okay, let's zoom out again. What's the market Hexbox is going after here, and how do they actually make money?
So the deck puts them in the global crowdfunding market. They cite it as over $1 billion annually. That includes traditional sites and blockchain ones.
And how do they see themselves compared to incumbents?
They contrast themselves pretty clearly. Traditional platforms, high fees, rigid, maybe not so secure or transparent.
Right.
Existing blockchain options, maybe better on security and automation, but potentially lacking flexibility, strong compliance, or, just being easy for regular businesses to use.
So Hexbox thinks there's a sweet spot in the middle.
That seems to be the idea. They're positioning themselves to grab a decent slice. The deck targets $50 million market share in 2 years.
Ambitious.
Yeah, and they believe they can do it by offering that specific mix: fraud resistance, AI smarts, and serious regulatory compliance, which is often the missing piece in Web3.
So the bet is the market wants blockchain benefits with real-world compliance and trust, especially for bigger projects or investors.
That seems to be the core bet, yeah, bridging that gap.
Makes sense. So how do they plan to turn that into revenue? What's the business model?
The main engine is a 2.5% commission on the funds raised in campaigns. Pretty straightforward.
Okay, a platform fee. Anything else?
They do list other potential streams, subscriptions for premium features, maybe advanced analytics or compliance tools, affiliate sales, ads on their marketplace, partnerships, even something called NFT wallet ads.
Okay.
Platform's value prop, adoption driven by trust, investor confidence leading to people sticking around and just being efficient. That's what they believe fuels the growth.
Okay, interesting projections. Let's talk about the journey. How do they plan to get there? The source mentioned phases and a use case. Alex and XAI.
Right, the roadmap. It starts late 2024 with Construct MVP. That's the base layer.
Minimum viable product. What's in it?
Launching on Avalanche C-Chain, the core escrow smart contracts, the basic website, dashboards, crypto payments, wallet stuff, launching the first campaigns, and some initial ID checks and fraud detection. Just getting it off the ground.
The foundation. Then what?
Phase 2 is Q2 2025, Oracle MVP Plus. This adds that analytics layer we talked about.
You're right, the data engine.
Yeah. On-chain proposals, campaign and investment analytics, marketing tools, better automated fraud detection, backer analysis, beefing up the data side.
And Sentinel, the compliance layer, when does that land?
That's slated for the second half of 2025, Q3, Q4. That's the big step. Deploying the permissioned L1.
The regulated zone.
Exactly. Full KYCML enforcement pathways to connect with regulators, the trust score, building out that structured database of verified info.
Okay, so build, analyze, comply. That seems logical. How does this Alex and NextAI story fit into that? Show us how it works.
Yeah, the deck uses this hypothetical case, Alex, who has an AI assistant idea called NextAI, to illustrate the flow.
Okay.
So stage 1, Alex finds traditional funding slow, unreliable. He uses Hexbox's Construct MVP, launches an escrow campaign. Funds get released based on milestones he hits.
And investors can see this happening.
Right. Real-time tracking builds trust. He gets $100 K, enough to build the basic AI, solves that initial funding and trust issue.
Nice start. But then he needs more money for growth, presumably.
Exactly. Stage 2, using Oracle MVP plus Umbrum. Alex needs scale-up capital. The deck says he uses the Oracle Analytics insights on backers, fund flow, to sharpen his pitch.
Uses the data to raise more money.
Precisely. He raises another $250 K via targeted proposals on Hexbox. And the platform's fraud detection running in the background adds credibility.
Okay, so analytics helps secure growth funding. What about bigger investors going global? That's where compliance usually bites.
That's stage 3, using Sentinel. NextAI gets bigger, attracts institutional interest. Now, serious compliance is non-negotiable.
Enter the permissioned layer.
Right. Alex and NextAI go through KYCML on Sentinel's L1. Their transactions become compliantly tracked. They get that trust and compliance score.
Making them investor ready.
That's the term the deck uses. Ready for bigger funding rounds, international expansion, because they can prove their compliance through Hexbox.
That story does tie it together well. Shows how it could support a project from zero to, well, much bigger, handling different needs along the way.
Yeah, it demonstrates the potential lifecycle support.
So, circling back to the competition, after seeing all these features, what does the source specifically say makes Hexbox different?
Well, it revisits the downsides of others. Traditional platforms, rigid, costly, opaque. Many Web3 platforms, maybe lacking compliance, usability, or that structured flexibility.
Okay, and Hexbox's unique selling proposition then is?
The deck really emphasizes merging blockchain security with flexible models and that strong regulatory focus.
The trifecta.
Kind of. Specific, unique features highlighted are the smart contract escrow, the multiple funding options, all or nothing, flexible, limitless, the on-chain tracking for transparency.
We covered those.
Right. And critically, structuring that financial data for risk assessment using that verified data layer for the AI and fraud detection. Plus, they toss in NFT promotional tools as another feature.
So the uniqueness is really in trying to build that whole system, secure funding, flexibility, transparency, and compliance, not just one piece.
That seems to be the core argument, yes.
Yeah.
A comprehensive, compliant ecosystem.
Quite the pitch. The deck also briefly mentions the team, right? Who's behind this?
Yeah, just a quick intro.
Any relevant background noted?
It mentions experience with startups, involvement in crypto communities and DAOs, and hackathon participation. Suggests a mix of business sense, security focus, and Web3 dev skills.
Okay, good to have a sense of the team.
Dev.
All right, well, that was a pretty comprehensive look into the Hexbox investor deck, if we boil it down. Hexbox is aiming high, building a crowdfunding platform that wants to seriously lift the game on transparency, security, and flexibility, using blockchain, using AI, and, crucially, building in regulatory compliance from the ground up.
And the core value, based on this source, seems to be reducing risk and building trust. Verifiable trust at every stage, making it easier for capital to flow efficiently between innovators and backers.
Absolutely. Which leads to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If a platform can deliver this combination, real-time transparency, smart contract flexibility, built-in compliance, AI risk checks, think about how that level of integrated trust and accountability might change things.
Beyond just crowdfunding.
Potentially, how could it reshape the whole relationship between creators, businesses, and the people or institutions who fund innovation in our digital world? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Indeed. That wraps up this deep dive. Hope it gave you some clear insights into Hexbox and what they're aiming for.